My name is Vanessa Irons. I'm a recent graduate of the Forest Institute. I have a master's in counseling psychology. I do also work here at the Morning Clinic as a community outreach facilitator, and I'm a counselor in training. So what we're going to talk today in the next hour, a little under an hour, is about anxiety and stress. You know, it's something that we deal with every single solitary day of our life. And it's something that we have to be able to control how we manifest the stress in our life for our health purposes. Anxiety is the third largest mental illness, and I use that term very loosely and broadly, in the United States. It accounts for almost a third of the mental health budget in the United States, approximately $42 billion out of $148 billion. Less than a third, lots of thirds here, less than a third of the people who have some sort of stress that is causing disturbance in their life actually go to treatment, actually seek help for that. They just continue to let the stress kind of control them. So our goal, my goal here, is to help you understand how your stress is related to every aspect of your life. Your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, even the health with your relationships, your families, your friends. And those triggers that happen, those physical manifestations that we can learn to identify, and then the, unfortunately, relatively easy steps that we can take to kind of mitigate some of that stress in our life. Not totally get rid of it, because as you'll learn a little bit later on, not all stress is bad. We need a little bit of stress in our life to kind of motivate us to do things. But the bad stuff is really kind of what eats us up and, you know, causes our immune system to kind of attack itself a little bit once in a while. This is Can You Relate? So this is a painting called The Scream by Edvard Munch. It was painted in the late 1890s, and I think they had stress back then too, obviously. And this man was, you know, exhibiting and manifesting his stress this day on this beautiful bridge. The thing about stress is that individuals with anxiety and stress feel very out of control. They feel that that life is happening to them, that they don't really have they don't have any control. They don't have any control over what is happening in their life. They experience higher levels of overall stress. They have difficulty managing pressure. They have higher expectations on themselves than they do other people. They often struggle with low self-esteem. They feel disconnected and detached from their life and from the people in their life. And they feel that life is kind of passing them by, again, not having that. The definition of anxiety is, it's just a general term for several disorders that cause nervousness, fear, apprehension, and worry. And anxiety just kind of leads us to general worry. And there are different types of anxiety disorders. Now, when I talk about a disorder, I'm talking about something that is to the point in your life where it is disrupting your life. You cannot work. You cannot maintain friendships or relationships. You cannot take care of yourself. You cannot bathe yourself. You know, you're not emotionally caretaking. So it's actually it's disrupting your day-to-day life. So you have generalized anxiety, which is just an overall fear of absolutely everything out there. This is what I call the mommy anxiety. Mommy's worry about everything all the time. And then you have panic disorder, which is a very short-term and intense anxiety. And this is a term for like a panic attack. So it's usually driven by something specific. Then you have phobias. Phobias, fears of you know, spiders, snakes, tight places, elevators, ladders, flying, driving, whatever. Social anxiety. Social anxiety is the fear of being negatively assessed. It's the fear of somebody judging you negatively. And the prime and number one social anxiety is what I'm doing right now. It's public speaking. You know, people obviously I don't have that anxiety. You know, but most people become very obsessive compulsive. These are obsessive thoughts and compulsive actions that kind of work together. So I have this obsessive thought, and the only way that I can get rid of this obsessive thought is to do this compulsive action. So I have this obsessive thought about germs, and the only way to solve it is to wash my hands 150 times a day. That's this obsessive compulsive. Post-traumatic stress, that's an anxiety disorder. We're seeing a lot of that with our veterans coming home these days. And then obviously separation anxiety disorders, and that's just being separated from people that you love. And this is not just a toddler disorder. This also can become very prevalent in teens and young adults and some older adults too. They feel that if they leave somebody that something bad is going to happen to them. So they become very anxious when they need to leave somebody. So these are just very basic and very brief definitions of certain anxiety disorders. Now, again, these are only disorders. I think everybody has a little bit of social anxiety. That doesn't mean it's not overwhelming to them, you know. So again, a little bit of anxiety and stress is good. So what is anxiety? Racing heart, tightness in the chest, tingling and numbness in your fingers and toes and your limbs. Tightness and tense muscles, that's a big one, especially right back here, right there in the neck. Yeah, we all just kind of hunch up, don't we? Butterflies in the stomach. Sweating. Lightheaded, dizzy, we talked about that. Headaches, get a headache. That headache can be caused from that blood pressure going up. Trouble concentrating, yeah. Insomnia, so we have trouble sleeping. And irritability. Well, if you're having any of these, you're probably going to be a little irritable. Really? Yeah. So, of course, I can see that very well. So we all kind of know when we're starting to feel these things that, okay, this is happening now. You know, so I need to find a way to kind of decompress. I need to figure out what it is I need to do so I can kind of mitigate what's going on. So the root of most anxiety is stress. Stress and anxiety, again, tweedledee, tweedledum. You know, we kind of talked about, yeah. We kind of talked about family, you know, kind of, finances. My favorite, the computer. It causes technology. Technology can cause a lot of stress in our life. Between our computer, our iPhone, and our iPads, you know, we're about done. And then, of course, you know, just an overall feeling that, you know, we're just getting stepped on pretty much throughout life. Poor fellow. So stress it's a chemical or emotional factor that causes bodily harm, actually. It causes body and mental tension that is restrictive to us. So every time you start having high stress levels and high anxiety levels, that is your body telling you that it's being restricted, that it is reacting to an external, usually and uncontrollable, most of the time, stressor, and we feel like we don't have any control. So when we don't have any control, our body becomes very defensive, and kind of this is what happens, is we kind of restrict everything in our body. We become tingly. We become tingly because the blood flow is being constricted in our arms and our legs, and our headache hurts. You know, we're trying to decide that fight or flight. You know, that's why our heart is racing. Am I going to stay? Am I going to go? Am I going to stay? Am I going to go? What am I going to do? So all these manifestations are happening because of all of this anxiety and stress just keeps on building and building and building. And we haven't figured out a good way to release it yet. that's going to be consistent. So I kind of mentioned this earlier, is all stress, bad stress, your task has high demand, but you have high control over that. Reasonable expectations, motivating factors, and successful completion. And this is the story, and this is my little fantasy story, but this is the way that I kind of explain it. Your new boss has just come to work, and she has said that she would like you to present, to make a presentation to the board of directors with her in 2 weeks. She's going to provide you all the tools you need to make your report. She will meet with you this week and next week to review your progress, make notes. In the meantime, she's going to be delegating some of your day-to-day responsibilities to somebody else, so you can really kind of, focus on this particular task, because it's very important to her. And, she wants to look good, so she's going to make sure you do well. That's good stress. It's very, you have very high demand, but you have a lot of control. You have all of the information that you need. You have reasonable expectations. You have a boss that is going to help you have a successful completion. That is good stress. You can also look at good stress being a wedding. A lot of stress there, but you have control. You're planning the wedding, having a baby. That's a lot of stress, but it's a lot of good stress, because you have a lot of control over your health and how you're going, to bring this baby into the world. Bad stress. Your task has high demand and low control. So a lot of accountability and no responsibility. That's basically what it is. IRS audit. There you go. Unreasonable expectations, demoralizing factors, and unsuccessful completion. So flip that. You've got a new boss that comes in and says, I'm going to make a presentation in front of the board of directors in a week, and you're going to do the report for me. And this is what they want. So this is what you need to create. I'm going to be meeting with all of the heads of the other departments during this week, so I really can't provide you any help. And you know what? It better be really, really good. Yeah. It better be really, really good, because, your job depends on it. So that's kind of the bad stress. I've had bosses like that. So I think we've all had bosses like that. Yeah. So very high demand, very low control. Unreasonable, totally unreasonable expectations. You make them look good is what you do. Yeah, demoralizing factors. In other words, you do a good job or you're fired. We don't care about the effort that you put into it. We're not going to tell you you did a great job. Either you do a great job or you're fired. And, of course, unsuccessful completion. It's going to be very, very difficult to kind of do that. So, you're stressing me out here. I know. I'm stressing myself out. This is the difference between good stress and bad stress. Controllable stress, uncontrollable stress. So, bad stress, obviously, is going to be you lose your job. A death in the family, of a friend or in the family. A crisis, a mental health crisis of a friend. These are all that are very unexpected, and they kind of hit us like a brick wall, and our body kind of, we really don't know sometimes how to deal with them. So the good stress is the motivating stress. It's the stress that we need to kind of move on with our lives. External factors of stress. We kind of talked about these a little bit later on. These are our day-to-day issues in our life that we have to deal with that provide us the most amount of stress that we have in our life. And they're constant, every single solitary day. So our marriage and our personal relationships. We don't live in a perfect world. And most of us are not married to either Cinderella or Prince Charming. Are you joking? We are. All right. So we're going to live happily ever after, but there's going to be a really bumpy road along the way. Our family and our children. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter if we worry about our children, if you don't have children, and you're worried about aging parents. You're always going to, your family and your children always cause you a certain amount of stress. Work and unemployment. So unemployment's one of those funny little things that can be good stress and bad stress there. The initial shock is bad because it's uncontrollable. So if you lose your job and it was unexpected, then that initial stress is not going to be good. But then if you're able to flip it pretty quickly, you can turn it into something positive. And I use myself in this example because in, let's see, what is this, 2004, I was downsized from a company that I've been with for 15 years. And so, the first day was pretty much a great big pity party for me, and our, they did it on a Friday, so of course I had a weekend to really, kind of dig in. But after about 24, 48 hours, I thought, okay, I'm a planner. I write things down. Yeah, I write things down, they go. So after about 24, 48 hours, I'm like, okay, what do I want to, this is a perfect opportunity for me to choose what I want to do with the rest of my life.
That happened to me with John in 10 years.
Yeah. So I flipped it to something that I had control over, that I could control. I could plan. I could do what I wanted to do. So work or unemployment, day-to-day stressors. Your daily schedule, which we always overschedule ourselves, always. We have nobody to blame but ourselves for that. School, obviously going to school, going into school, coming out of school, finances, transportation and traffic. This is the #1 thing for me driving in Springfield. Natural disasters and war and combat. Now, most of these things, we have some control over some of these, but on a large extent, we don't really have a lot of control. We can only control ourselves in our little car. We can't control anybody else. We certainly can't control the weather. That's something we can't control. Our finances, we can plan our finances, and we can make budgets, and we can plan our future, and we can be proactive, but we can't plan something that we can't foresee.
Like so market crashes.
Exactly. Something we can't plan. So even though we have a small modicum of control, we really don't have a lot of control. So the internal factors of stress, these are the things that you can control that will help you mitigate and manage all of those wonderful, wonderful plethora of bodily manifestations that we have from stress. So your nutritional status, your fitness levels, your emotional well-being, and your ability to control stress. So, and from here on out, this is what we're going to be working on, are these aspects of the internal factors, what I can control myself. Not what somebody else thinks I should do, not what somebody else, says I must do, but what I know I can do myself. Stress management tools. How do you ladies currently manage your stress? Prioritize. Prioritize your life. If everything is a priority, nothing is. Absolutely. So if everything has a #1 by it, everything is not the most important thing. It's not. So what I'm saying is write a list out on a daily or weekly basis, however you want to do this, or monthly basis. I don't care. But write down the things that you must do every day. So you must go to work. Yeah. Those are things that you must do. Yeah. So, and you identify those things that you must do for your survival. Then you identify those things that you could do if you got all your musts done. And then if you get all your coulds, what would you do? And you'll notice I didn't say should in any of this. And actually must is pushing it a little bit. I don't like the word must a lot. But should is a word that I really dislike because it causes guilt. Yes, and Clayton Barbeau is a clinical psychologist that came up with a word called shoulding ourselves. We are shoulding all over ourselves. basically saying the problem that we have with stress and anxiety in today is that we tend to create our priorities on our life based on what we think we should do, or what we think other people think we should do. I had a conversation with a man I was giving this presentation to, and I talked to him, and he said, I was talking about the musts, could and would, and he said, well, I have to work. And I said, okay, all right. He goes, well, I must, that's something I have to do. I must do that. I said, I get that, but you can control how much you work. I said, I know people who work 80 hours a week and make lots of money who are miserable. And I know people who make $25,000 a year who work 30 to 40 hours a week who are exceptionally happy. I said, you have to determine are you working 80 hours a week and making all this money because it's something you want, or is it because you think you should want? That's the difference. I said, you can control what you do with your life. You can control how much you work. I said, your boss, if you're exempt, your boss is going to pay you. He's not going to pay you any more money if you stay and work 80 hours a week. He's not going to do it. And if you calculate it out, you're making less than minimum wage.
I gave up a job like that.
I said, so, you actually do have control over your musts. It depends upon where your values are coming from. If you make the decision based on you and your family and the needs of your family and not anybody else, not the neighbors, not anybody that, well, I should want to live in this pretty subdivision. Why? I have many, many beautiful subdivisions on many beautiful golf courses here. Should I live there? I don't think I should.
No, I have to work 3 jobs.
That's not a priority to me. Not me either. So again, prioritize your life based on what your values are. So what I want you ladies to think about, and anybody else out there watching this, is what's important to you? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it having time with your family and friends? So what is important to you, not to anybody else? This is where you take the world out of your decision making. But what is important to you? Having time with family and friends to go on vacation is a priority for her. And that's a wonderful priority. And she does it because it's relaxing. And she does it because it's a way to manage her stress, which is even great. So she's not only managing her stress, she's bonding with her family and her friends, and it's wonderful. But she's not taking the vacation because her neighbor says, oh, you have to go to Anguilla. Why don't you say no? No? No, thank you. I appreciate you asking, but unfortunately, no. No is pretty an easy word to say. It's the guilt that follows that we have trouble with kind of dealing with. Somebody asks you for the 3rd year in a row to be the chairman of the whatever committee, and you're really done. You don't have any time. Oh, Sandy, thank you so much for considering me for this again, but unfortunately, I think it's time to give somebody else a try. I'll be more than happy to be able to provide some cupcakes or whatever is needed. But I think it's time to give somebody else a try.
I think there's a fine line in saying no. If you say no too many times because you just don't feel like it, you may be having some trouble with being selfish.
Well, being selfish isn't necessarily always bad, because there might be times in your life when you really need to be selfish. And it might be a month long, it might be a couple of months long. So that I want you to be able to say yes when you want to say yes, not because you feel you would say yes. Not for guilt purposes, not for I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want you to say yes because you feel that you must say yes or that you shouldn't say yes. You need to say yes because it's, yes, this is something that I really want to do. I'm very passionate about this. It's exciting. That's when I want you to say yes, not when it's like, oh, Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. You don't want that kind of yes.
Oh, but yeah.
You don't want that kind of yes. So your goal, your goal is you have to practice with her saying no.
Oh,
It's very easy. It's just no. No, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
you just want to help somebody, and then you end up getting the advantage.
Yeah, because and this is what this I call that being sucked dry. You know, and I used to work in an industry where you had to work with the local Chamber of Commerce. Well, people in the local Chamber of Commerce, when they find fresh blood, oh, they're going to suck you dry. They want you to be on every committee. They want you to be involved in everything. And the problem came is I was like, sure, I'm never at work. I'm actually working for the Chamber of Commerce, you know. So, or any other type of nonprofit or government agency or whatever. So it was like, no, I just can't. And you really don't have to provide a reason why. You don't. You just say, oh, thank you so much for thinking of me. But unfortunately, I'm just unable to do that right now. But, you know, I will help as I can. There you go. Say no. Personal and family calendar. I don't know if you guys use a personal or family calendar in your home. Have it somewhere up on a refrigerator or somewhere you can see it. Plan your time. Do not overplan your time. Be reasonable in what you can do. Stress often results in unreasonable expectations. I think I can do, 10 things today, and I really, honestly, can only do about 3. So, yeah. Email, do you have to answer your email every time a little thing dings?
No.
Right.
I don't even turn off.
Okay, I'm going to ask you another one. Do you have to answer your phone every time it rings?
No.
Do you answer your phone every time it rings?
Yes.
That's the great thing about having caller ID on your phone. Don't let your technology control you. So, stop procrastinating. And actually what I want you to do is figure out why you're procrastinating. Is it a boring task? Is it something that's going to cause you to have to be confrontational with somebody? You need to figure out why you're procrastinating. So if you've got that stack of bills on your desk that you're just putting off, or you got that stack of tasks, those data entry tasks that are really boring, that have to be done by the end of the month. Those are tasks that a lot of the time are so mundane and so boring that we don't want to do them. So we do put them off to the very end. My theory is always do something that you don't want to do before you do something that you do want to do. So, maybe don't put all the data entry one day, but do a little bit every day. So the first thing on your desk every day is data entry 15 minutes. And you do that first, and then you start doing the things that you want to do. Organize your physical space. I could sit here and talk all day about organization. But a cluttered place is a cluttered mind. Things drag us down. Having a disorganized space, disorganized to you. Everybody's idea of organization is a little bit different. I work from files. I have friends that work from piles. And believe me, it works. That pile thing works for them. It wouldn't work for me. So organize to what's best for you. Some of these we already talked about because you said you already did them. So mindfulness, deep breathing, guided imagery, progressive muscle relaxation, yoga, and one of the best relaxations that you get is laughing. Having good friends, having that support system that you can laugh with is exceptionally important. You can go online, as I tell you to stay away from technology, I'm telling you to go back and get your technology. You can go online and find a myriad of scripts for mindfulness, deep breathing, guided imagery, progressive muscle. Just taking a walk. And take a walk without the earbuds in your ears. So you can hear the sounds of the birds and, all of that stuff going on. But if either of you have issues with insomnia, progressive muscle relaxation is a very exceptional tool to use. many scripts. And actually, you could do this while you were outside doing your sunset too. It would be pretty good. But basically, like progressive muscle relaxation is you either start from the toes and work to the top, or the top, and then work the toes. And you basically clench the muscles in your toes for like 10 seconds and not let go. And then clench and let go, and clench and let go. And then you kind of move up your body. Then you move up to your ankles and your feet and your shins and your thighs and your little tushy back here and your abs and your chest and your neck and your head. And you do that because what you're trying to develop is a sense memory of what stress feels like and what it feels like to let go of stress. So you're clenching so your body can feel the tightness, and then you're letting go so that you kind of feel that wave come over you of calmness. And by clenching and letting go, clenching and letting go, clenching and letting go, your muscles are actually secreting enzymes and all kinds of stuff that are preparing you for sleep. So it's a wonderful tool to use for if you have issues with insomnia or even light issues of insomnia. Don't get up and watch TV. Don't do that because the light will mess with your mind. So, but just deep breathe and it's a wonderful tool to use. Yoga is one I put up there just because I've used it in the past. I find that there's so many different types of yoga. I used to do what was called Kundalini yoga, which was actually breathing and stretching. So it wasn't a lot of this, warrior pose and all that stuff. So it was more breathing, stretching, deep breathing, and stretching the muscles. Again, much like progressive muscle relaxation, to kind of find that wonderful sense of calmness in your muscles. And exercise. We all hear about this, how good exercise is, and we all hear about it because unfortunately, or fortunately, it's true. Exercise is a key component to stress relief. Physical exercise not only promotes overall fitness, it also helps manage emotional stress, tension, and improve sleep. Again, if you're having problems with insomnia, go take a walk. Or some sort of emotion exercise. Can emotionally remove one temporarily from a stressful situation or environment. When I know I'm going to the doctor's office and I'm going to get my blood pressure checked, if I'm just going for like a regular checkup, if I'm not really, if I'm sick, I can't do this, but if I'm just going for my regular checkup and I know he's going to be checking my blood pressure, I either take a walk or ride my bike. Because guess what? My blood pressure is going to be killer when I go in there that afternoon. It's going to be fabulous. It's probably going to be at least 20 points below what it normally would be. Exercise provides us, again, with endorphins that kind of flood our brain and our body, allowing us to feel good. The tension is relieved from our muscles. So again, it allows us to be able to emotionally remove from a stressful situation and environment. It's a key component, and I always stress exercise to any of my clients that come in with depression. Take a walk somewhere. I don't care where. It could be around your backyard. Just start taking a walk somewhere. It will make a world of difference. And then you can work out if you want to. Alice Stormer is a woman, and she also has a should kind of thing going on too. But she is very popular in the world of positive psychology. Positive psychology being, obviously, we get away from the labeling of people. We don't want to dwell on people's imperfections. We want to dwell on people's strengths. So, accepting your uniqueness and imperfections, Dr. Dormer says, as Americans, we are conditioned through years of exposure and media bombardment to believe that completely unrealistic expectations are attainable. We have been trained to think that it is because of our flaws and weaknesses that we can't live up to the image of what we should be, how our home should look, how we should raise our children, and how we should be doing our jobs. And again, Dr. Barbeau would also say, that's right, we're shitting all over ourselves. We have become intolerant of imperfection. in our society. We really have. We don't like the way our bodies look, we have surgery. You know, we try to find happiness and value in material things, or material things, I should say. So, and that's that should. I should look this way, I should live here, I should drive this, and I should be happy. Yeah, well, it's fine with things. You know, and when I told somebody a long time ago, the more money you make, the more money you spend. That's just the bottom line. And the more money you worry, the more time you worry about spending the money that you're making. So what I would tell you, ladies, is step in the right direction. Putting away your list of personal shortcomings and taking inventory of your strength. I call these are I statements. I am a good friend. I am a good worker. I am a good mother. I am a good grandma. I'm a loving grandma. You know, again, I'm a good friend. I'm funny. You know, I'm considerate. You know, these are things, sit down, and if you can't think of stuff for yourself, ask your friend. They'll be able to come up with a list all by themselves of why they love you. Recall past accomplishments, your unique compliments from your friends and love and respect that you have received. I call this your warm and fuzzy file. Everybody should have a warm and fuzzy file. And the warm and fuzzy file is all those things that you kind of acquire throughout your work, your life, your whatever it is, that when somebody has said, good job, fabulous, thank you. Because on your worst days, you pull out your warm and fuzzy file, and you just kind of read four or five things, and you feel a whole lot better. You feel a whole lot better. To err is human. And it's usually our friends' flaws that make them seem most authentic and lovable to us. So authenticity, being authentic is universally admired. And you know what? We love our friends for their flaws, but we have such unreasonable expectations for ourselves. So, you know, give yourself some little credit there. Embrace your humanity. You're not a robot. You're not a superhero. You're not an action figure. Those people are usually kind of plastic and made up anyway. Be kind to yourself and to others. We act like the person that we believe ourselves to be, and I believe what I'm going to tell you 100%. You teach people how to treat you. Let that kind of, you know, filter in, but you do. You teach people how to treat you. So if you believe that you are a kind and generous person, then that's how you will act in the world. You deserve that same kind of generosity to yourself, so be kind to yourself. When you compare yourself to others, please be graciously fair. Give yourself credit for all your admirable qualities, and grant yourself the permission and privilege of just being who you are. And here's the adage that I heard years ago, which I've never forgotten. All I can do is all I can do, and that is enough. We really are good enough.